and welcome. Today I am working on some pieces of tile from the hardware store. This is for the My Creative Year challenge, and this month is all about nature. And I have these natural elements, these leaves and things on this particular stencil that I have on this tile. I've prepared everything to be safe, and I'm just using alcohol inks and alcohol and sponges and creating a look on this particular tile. Now I'm going to end up setting this one aside and moving on to do a couple other pieces, but I was having some difficulty with my camera and getting the video done, so I just continued to play, and we'll show you what we got here. This is a hair dryer, and it has a cool setting. I tend to use that. You don't want to use heat with alcohol ink. You want to use something cool. So I'm just moving the alcohol around a little bit and drying it off with the cool setting on this. And I'm peeking underneath. Yeah, it looks like it's going to work, but I'm going to set this aside to dry while I go to my next piece. So I'm just adding some color with a blender tool. This has some felt on it, and I have some ink on that, and I just want to get rid of the white. I want to, blend out some color onto that tile. And it's got alcohol on there, so it makes a nice smooth surface. I don't really want the white showing. I want color. So once I've done that, and you can see I have a tile underneath, I have my ink bottles. I also have a cookie sheet that I'm using to catch things with for drips and sprays and all of that, because I tend to use things like fire and alcohol. Now I use a safety mask. I use ventilation, all of the things that you need to do to be safe. The reason I have the tiles underneath is so that when I set things on fire, I'm not burning things up. The heat is not going through. And these are the homemade sprays that I've made using alcohol and inks. So I'm just blending that out, and where it gets a little bit too heavy-handed, where the ink gets too thick, if you come back in with one of those blending tools or a sponge or something, you can blend that out on your tile. And there again, I am blowing it with a cool tool, not a heat tool. This is a hair dryer with a cool setting. And sorry about the lighting. I'll give you some final shots at the end. Unfortunately, because I'm using heat and because I'm not able to work in my usual space, the overhead light is glaring off of that, and I apologize. Like I said, this is not my usual setup, because if I were at my desk, I'd probably be setting things on fire. I have, you can see I've lit the alcohol. What I'm doing is burning off the alcohol. It gives these different types of effects, and I wanted something that looked rather stone-like or earthy, and so that's what I was doing with the fire. And then I come back with my tool and manipulate those splotchy places where the ink is a little bit too thick and I want to thin it out a little bit. So I'm just going to manipulate that. And then I will give you some close-ups of that particular piece so that you can see it without the glare. Yeah, they're shiny. They glare. I'm sorry. But you get the idea that it's more of a marbleized rock gemstone kind of look on this particular tile. Okay, tile number 3. So I'm back to my alcohol sprays, and this time I'm going to put a couple different greens down for my background layer. I want this to be very earthy, so the greens go down first, and then I'm going to get some butterscotch alcohol ink, which is kind of a golden color, blending that into the background just to give it some variegation, whatever you want to call it. And as I tip it around, you can see that the alcohol is still very wet. It's moving across the tile, which is fine. You know, I like that drippy kind of effect. So if you don't want it to do that, then don't pick up your tile. Do your sides first. I don't mind that. I think it's kind of interesting. So for this one, I decided I want to try a couple of different things. I'm going to dry this layer off and use my cool tool for that. And I'm just coming in with some more of those butterscotch tones, blending it into the background. And I'm going to use some rubber stamps on here. I have some leaf stamps, and you know, the ones that I'm going to pick first are from a company that I think is defunct. I don't think they're out there anymore, but there's lots of leaf stamps. I don't care what company you go to, they've all got leaves. But what I'm doing is I'm using some of the alcohol lift ink, and I'm going to see if I can lift that, and sure enough, yeah, I'm getting the alcohol ink to lift using the alcohol lift ink. So I'm going to get a piece of paper so that I can use it to clean my stamp off. You want to clean your stamp in between. Each time you stamp, you're going to want to lift it, you're going to want to clean the stamp, and then you're going to add the lift ink again, stamp it down, clean it off, and I'm just going to repeat this process several times. Okay, and once I have the lift ink in place, I'm going to take just a piece of tissue and I'm going to set it down on the tile and press. And what I'm trying to do is just lift up the wet alcohol, and it's smearing just a little bit. So I'm going to lift up the wet alcohol ink, the lift ink, and reveal the image underneath. I hope you can see this in the shot. I will have some final photos at the end. Hopefully they'll be better than all this glary stuff. But it is a shiny surface, and that's hard to photograph. So now I decide I'm going to do some stamping on here. This particular ink was puddling up a little bit, so I wasn't really liking it that much. It's supposed to be a hybrid ink. Yeah, not the best one for this, but I get out my StazOn ink in a claret, and the problem with StazOn is it doesn't come in quite the assortment of colors that some of these other lines have, so you know, you're limited in the color choices when you're using StazOn, but it is meant to use on these slick surfaces. So that's what I'm choosing to use and get those leaf images into my background. So going back to the first tile, I am pulling the stencil and just using some canned compressed air. You know, this is the kind that you clean your computer with, to dry the ink on the surface. And I'm not really liking those white spaces that are left on there, so I'm going to grab my tool once again and do a little bit of blending into those white areas. And I know it's difficult to see because of the glare from the light, but you know, I don't know what else to do about this. I have to have light. I work in the basement. It's just, it's a constant struggle, folks. So sorry. So, yeah, I'm just blending that out a little bit and getting rid of those white, stark white contrast areas on the tile. And I'm liking that a little bit better. And then, let's see, what did I do from here? Oh, I picked up some stamps. I was going to do some stamping on here. That didn't work out quite as well as I'd hoped for, but let's move on to some of those final shots. And I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you try some natural elements on your tiles and have some fun. So be sure and check out My Creative Year on Facebook and come join us. There will be all kinds of art being shared in free instruction like this. So join us, won't you? Remember to be kind, and especially to yourselves, and that you make a difference in everyone's lives. So I'll see you again next time. Bye for now.